We have a great thing here today where I guess we'd like to see if you and Emma have any questions for each other about your organization. So we'll welcome back Emma into the segment here and see if you guys have, any questions for each other or dialogue that would be useful for this particular episode.
Thanks for having me back.
Hey, Emma, how's it going?
Good. I learned so much from you, especially not coming from an immigrant family myself, and not having to go through that experience. I learned so much, and now I'm just thinking about how do different communication style impact how people reach out to us, especially over the phone.
Yeah.
Text messages where we don't have context necessarily.
Yeah.
So I learned so much related to that.
Information exchange, that's how it works, right?
Absolutely. And I know what we often see too in terms of people reaching out when it's around navigation and where to go, we often are talking to the youth in the families and maybe not their parents or grandparents, depending on that. And I think it is a little bit about that cultural integration, which is really interesting. So I learned so much, and I will just put in a plug for Andrew's program because especially our 2-on-1 program is all about making connections to the services that are available in community, and we so often direct people to all of the different services available through Catholic Social Services. But I know that Immigrant and Settlement Service is such a valued resource in our community, and they do such good work, and so it's a connection we make all the time for people.
Oh, I'm blushing. Oh, that's too kind. That's too kind. We do the same with you. I mean, it's such an important, like mental health cannot be understated, right? So certainly, I think we have to work better together for sure.
Absolutely.
If I can start, perhaps, for you, when you're engaging with newcomer families, what is the biggest cultural issue that you kind of run into? Just to set the tone, like for us, oftentimes mental health in general and as a social standard, it's not really discussed. But in terms of like small cultural backgrounds and ethnic understandings of mental health, it's almost a despicable issue to speak of, right? It's like we can't talk about mental health. It's Ouija board magic or those type of things, right? So how do you really approach that with newcomer clients?
I mean, I would say that is what we experience is kind of the different ways that mental health is discussed or not discussed in different cultures, and in particular mental illness, and how that's viewed in each different culture is definitely something that we experience. And I think how we try to tackle that is, it wasn't that long ago, even in Canada, that it was not something we talked about. I think that's a thing we need to remember as well, is that we're not far from times where there was a significant amount more stigma and people weren't talking about it in Canada. So what we try to do is just open the door to that conversation and share what we know, and allow for people to also share with us their context around mental health. Because that will help us continue that conversation under common ground, so we can kind of get that understanding of where people are at, and really providing that space without shame and with stigma. And I mean, what we try to talk about and be really clear on is the difference between mental health and mental illness, because they're two different things that are often in community thought of as the same thing. And the reality is we all have mental health. We all have it. We sometimes have good days. We sometimes have bad days. Sometimes we're more stressed. Sometimes we're not. Sometimes we might feel a little bit more anxious about a situation, or we might have feelings of depression, and we all have that, and we're on that spectrum. And only some of us have a diagnosed mental illness that we're going and seeking support for. And so we try to kind of normalize that conversation and provide what we know, granted through our Canadian lens. But I think a key piece too is just to understand where people are coming from. and what they know and how they understand, and really open the door to that conversation, and hoping we can move forward.
How do you, because the newcomer experience is so stressful, and sometimes, and again, I go back to like ideas of sacrifice. Like you're almost expected to go through this period of turbulence, let's say, but it's almost expected. You kind of have to. Like, at what point would you say that it's necessary to reach out? And sometimes it's difficult because if your basic needs, if you can't find a job, you almost think it's unnecessary to really treat your mental health. You know what I mean? So like, at what stage do you do that?
I mean, I would say at any stage that somebody feels comfortable reaching out. And it's very much the situation where I have to make sure my basic needs are met first. And then once that's done, I'll either feel better or I'll be able to take the next step. That's a common thing that we see for people. So I think it's a little bit of whenever you're ready to reach out. But it's also a piece of there are supports out there. There are other people, there are peers in community that are dealing with the same struggles. And I heard you mention earlier, like, reach out. There's somebody else who's dealing with that. And even that listening ear that has had that maybe similar experience that can validate what you're feeling can go a really long way in building connection and reducing isolation, particularly when we're struggling. And so that's a piece. The other thing too is there are a lot of wonderful programs in our community that try to be low barrier access for some of that preventative support. So I think about our crisis line or free drop-in counseling, or many of the programs that are available in community are there. And so sometimes accessing them when you're struggling to meet those basic needs can help you. The analogy we often use is like, help you fill your bucket. So you have more energy and you have more capacity to tackle those really challenging things that you're doing and you're dealing with in coming to a new country and having to navigate that and find a job and stable housing and all of schools for your kids and all of those different things. So accessing those supports, even if it's just a one-time thing, can really help to fill that bucket up and keep kind of moving along on the next step in your journey.
That's interesting. Thank you.
How can family members support a family member who is going through or has a mental health illness or issue?
The important thing, I've been talking a lot about reaching out, but as a family member who's concerned, you can reach out too. And we have lots of programs and supports available for family members. So through 211, you can reach out. Through our distress line, you can reach out. We have caregiver connections programs, family peer support programs to reach out as a family member. You can do that. The other piece is just being open to the conversation about how somebody's feeling and what they might be experiencing, and expressing that to them, that I'm here to listen. I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to shame. I'm here for you. And opening that door for conversation, I think is, it seems simple, but it's just one of those things that if you open that door, and sometimes it's just like a check-in. Hey, I've noticed, this has changed. What's going on? Do you want to talk about it? And opening that door for that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Just be proactive in trying to find resources in the community. The less the individual suffering mental health has to think, sometimes the better, in terms of actually finding which resources fit the best, all those type of things. And just, again, also just be open, and be willing to listen and be very patient. I'm just going to perhaps bring in maybe a cultural interpretation of this, especially if you're dealing with mental health among let's say, parents or an adult and you are a youth, it can be a little bit more challenging. Obviously, within the family role, it's very difficult for you to maybe question or even bring up issues of mental health or any issues in general with your parents.
Yeah.
But I do think sometimes it's important to be very clear about why the mental health issue is perhaps an issue. But obviously don't frame it in that way. But you could perhaps frame it as something a little more tangible or functional. Sometimes this is a good avenue for you to start the conversation. But at the end of the day, make sure that all those comments are non-judgmental and endorse patients. And the other thing I want to add too is that you have to maybe take care of your own mental health as well. Oftentimes, caregivers, they don't really think about themselves, and often this results in burnout, right? So be very careful with your own mental health while helping others. So.
I have a question for the both of you, actually. Seeing that you both work in, social services, and we're talking about filling our buckets and all of that stuff, how do you each fill your buckets or take care of your well-being so that you're able to take care of these people who are coming to you like 24/7 hotline or, all of these things, and continuously talking about, normalizing mental health and taking care of your mental well-being?
And a lot of crying in the corner. No, I'm joking. I guess I'll start. For me, it's just really trying to be creative and maybe outpouring your energy in something that's a little bit different and productive for yourself. So for me, I enjoy drawing, perhaps sometimes playing some music very badly, but some music or like maybe working out, right? Something I feel that it's for myself and my own. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say this maybe should have been one of my tips for the back to school, and something to recognize even if you're doing school from home or working from home is really being able to set those boundaries to say, I'm taking a break now, or I'm done for the day, and be able to step away from that workspace and be in your home space. And those boundaries are definitely blurred depending on what our contexts are right now. And so I think that's really important. And then, like Andrew, it's find those things that bring you joy. And I think the key thing too is to recognize, like, what are things that can take 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes, half an hour, an hour, and being able to slot those into your day as you have time is really important. And so, I mean, I know for me, walking my dogs is such an important part of my daily activity, and it allows me to just focus on them and the outdoors. That being said, I was extremely grateful that they were quiet.
Oh yeah.
They have not been quiet all day, so I'm glad they were. But having my dogs, and like, I love to read, that allows me to take a step back and imagine myself in a different world. It's really important. And even I think in our new times, if you're a social person, find ways to make those social connections. And maybe it's just a quick text exchange with somebody once a day. That isn't about all of the different things going on at work or anything like that. It's just that one little thing. So I think it's just important to know what works for you and when you can use those things, and recognizing, like, when do I need to take a moment and need to step back to help with focus as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Thank you both again, and thank you for being open to that dialogue between each other. I'm sure this will reach a lot of the community and be a lot of help and a great resource for them as well. So I'm going to wrap up now. So stay tuned, everyone, for our next episode. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, too, that we are now on Spotify. So this is April again, signing off. See you next time. And thank you so much again, both of you, for being here with me.